Fabio is a bit of a genius when it comes to design. He's not only perhaps the best designer in Milan, he might be one of the very best designers in the entire world. So it's a big honor for me to introduce Fabio and the fact that he designed this exhibition.
Buonasera a tutti. Intanto vi ringrazio per essere venuti a omaggiare questo grandissimo maestro. E poi vi dico una cosa che è un mio personale punto di vista, che ci fanno Steve McCurry e la Pazza. E ve lo dico io che ci fanno insieme. Ci fanno che il caffè, ragazzi, specialmente poi per la nostra cultura, che è una cultura che siamo riusciti ad esportare in tutto il mondo, io lo definisco un social network, il più antico dei social networks. Cioè va oltre i vostri Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Andarsi a prendere un caffè è il gesto più sociale, empatico e aggregativo che si possa fare. Quindi è qui che si incrociano le strade di Steve McCurry e la Lavazza e possono soltanto raccontare una storia meravigliosa. Grazie veramente per essere venuti.
It's a really unusual and unique design of the book. In fact, it's the book. And I want, if you could explain a little bit about and why these people should see this, because it's these pictures which opens up and you feel like you're inside the scene.
Ok, vi do una piccola preview della mostra così venite a visitarla realmente. Quindi l'oggetto di questa collaborazione, 13 anni di collaborazione, diciamo diventa questo oggetto che è il libro. Un libro fatto con Faido, una mitica casa editrice. Quindi io mi trovavo ad avere a che fare proprio con un oggetto fisico. L'ho ingrandito, l'ho fatto ad una scala in cui ci si può quasi entrare nelle foto. Quindi immaginatevi questo effetto Alice nel Paese delle Meraviglie. Ci sono 31 giganti libri attraverso cui ci si addentra, poi disposti in una maniera tale da disegnare una specie di labirinto. Tutto il percorso della mostra è un labirinto in cui bisogna perdersi per ritrovarsi. In più vi do un altro dettaglio molto importante: questo meraviglioso museo era un monastero, era un convento, e la sala dove noi abbiamo fatto la mostra era la biblioteca del convento, quindi un libro trova casa in quello spazio lì e tutto ha senso. Poi c'è una statua, c'è una scultura di Leonardo da Vinci sullo sfondo illuminata con un occhio di bue che occheggia e si gode la situazione. Vale veramente la pena vederla questa mostra. Ma poi siete tutti qui in piazza, voglio dire, è un omaggio a questo grandissimo maestro. Evviva Steve!
Thank you, Steve. It's your night. Enjoy.
So I want to show some of my pictures. I've been traveling in coffee countries for maybe 30 years. But it was only about 12 years ago that I started to work with Francesca and the Lavazza family and the team, and we started to look very carefully at who these coffee farmers are, how they live, how they work, how they play, everything. So the exhibition is really a portrait of these coffee growers. So let me get my machine here. And, this actually was this is actually the cover of my book, and it was photographed in Colombia, South America. And I've always loved working in color because the world's in color. So to me, it seems very logical to use color because it's more kind of realistic. So just to kind of start this journey through, we started in Colombia, and really my interest in my brief was really to photograph how these people, this is the father and son at home, how they live, where they live, and traveled through Brazil, which is really the largest coffee producer in the world. And the thing which was so fascinating to me in this journey was you have these different cultures. You have people in Brazil, Africa, Asia, and they have such a different cultures, but the common thread running through this world was coffee and also humanity. It was fascinating to see them, different religions, doing everything in a different way, but yet they all doing coffee in a very similar way. This little boy was found particularly fascinating. He's a very handsome little boy, and really, we went into churches, went into schools, hospitals, and really wanted to get kind of deep into the culture of these people. This was actually just outside of the hotel I was staying at, and every morning I'd walk out and these men with the kind of horse-drawn carriage would be there waiting for somebody to hire them. And it was really like a scene from another age. You don't really see this anymore. It's Honduras. This is actually a grandfather and his granddaughter in a bus stop outside of their home. And it just, I loved the patterns of hands on the wall. Same village, and it's fascinating to see how we all decorate our homes in different ways. This woman actually sort of wallpapered her home with newspaper, and the whole, hallway was just newspapers and magazines. And this is a very small village up in the mountains, way up in the mountains in Honduras. And this is the living room, the kitchen, and I always try and, if there's a dog or a cat in the vicinity, I always try and incorporate that in one of my pictures. It's in Peru. Mother, father with their grandkids. Again, I always try and find a dog to photograph in the picture. It's Vietnam. Yeah, I was really, I went to Vietnam with Francesca, and I was really surprised that Vietnam is one of the major coffee producers in the world. I didn't realize, and actually India is also a major coffee. They drink, they're mostly drinking tea, but they produce, again, a major coffee producer. It's the coffee shop in outside of Hanoi. It's a picture of Beethoven on the wall. It's a little woman we ran across I love the mood and the kind of melancholy feeling. It's kind of a bit of a sad, private moment this little girl seems to be having. Of course, that's my particular version of my that I don't know what she was thinking, but it seems like a very private moment that she's having. Indonesia, this is from Indonesia. Indonesia is actually another important coffee producing country. And I was photographing these farmers, and the little boy sort of fell off this plow, and I caught him right at the moment as he hit the ground. A kind of funny picture. This looks like what we should all be doing right now. was having a swim naked. Maybe I will want to go back to the hotel. I was there during the monsoon in Indonesia. The monsoon is one of my favorite times to travel to Asia, to India, and after the incredible heat before the monsoon, then it starts to rain, everybody goes crazy, and so this is actually transitioning to Ethiopia. I've been to Ethiopia a few times. Actually, Ethiopia is they think that Ethiopia is the birthplace of coffee, where coffee was originally discovered, and they have incredible coffee plantations in this rolling, beautiful landscape. And Ethiopians, I think, are one of the most handsome people in the world. They're just, there are so many beautiful faces that, I just couldn't stop photographing. So, coffee grows in often remote areas, and sometimes they have horses or mules, or they're hand carried, or they go by maybe truck or whatever. This was a plantation, actually in the hilly area outside of Addis Ababa. This was in a coffee shop. So you have Bob Marley, Haile Selassie, previous emperor, and the Mona Lisa, all there. It was very. I saw this and I thought, this is going to be a great picture. So funny. So Ethiopians have this really interesting sort of coffee ceremony that they do, and it really reminded me of the tea ceremony in Japan, which is very kind of a ritual and very stylized, and it's very kind of very beautiful to watch, and it's sort of like this in Ethiopia where they have this ritual, and the woman roasts the beans and then she mixes it with water. It's a very elaborate, very interesting process. So this is in a tea shop, a coffee shop in Ethiopia. Now we move to Tanzania, and the coffee region that Lavazza is kind of working in is on the banks, it's on the hills of the hillside of Kilimanjaro, the mountainside of Kilimanjaro, which is the highest mountain in Africa. And this is a coffee farmer, and I was fascinated. First of all, he has this sort of marijuana cap on, but then he had this glass eye. So one eye is like really, really kind of bright, and the other one was sort of, kind of not bright. We went to a church service in Tanzania with Francesco. We had this incredible priest, Father Peter, who is one of the most sort of charismatic men I've ever met. Really, really wonderful human being. And this is his church, so we were there, we spent a couple hours meeting people, I photographed whatever I could. So this is, again, right on the mountainside of Mount Kilimanjaro. These are some coffee bags. I don't know if you can read it. It says, there's a Korea in Milwaukee, there's the Yokohama and South Africa and Helsinki. Just to show you how far this coffee goes, and it goes all over the world. One of the great things about Ethiopia is in these coffee shops is the color and it's so kind of incredible for pictures. This is just a coffee shop before they open. This is early in the morning. These are some young African hammer women, and I was amused by the kind of the mannequin in the back, the sort of plastic white mannequin. This is a 15-year-old, 14 or 15-year-old Ethiopian girl who I thought, you know, I was just fascinated with her grace and her style and her elegance and her beauty. And I photographed a very famous Ethiopian model some years ago, and I was looking at her thinking, you know, if life had been a little different and she was born in a different place, you know, she could have been like a supermodel, you know, because she was tall and thin and beautiful, and instead of being, you know, in that world of glamour and beauty and fashion, she's living in a hut and a very difficult life. So there's sort of the you know, fate and how life is sometimes random and unfair is it really fascinating to me. Some young kids just playing in the afternoon in the dust. I don't normally shoot sunsets, but I just they were bringing their animals back home at the end of the day, and I just again the shape of that girl, that young woman, I just thought it was just a real kind of poetry. These are some you know, local villagers. I spent I don't know, 4 or 5 days in this one coffee area, and this was a man who went out every day and picked coffee, and his face and the thing he was wearing, I thought it was very, very kind of striking. And this man, he was kind of dressed in this sort of funny hat. Again, it's really incredible. When you go inside, I love working in very dim, dark, moody, sort of rich, kind of where the color kind of comes alive. So this is a coffee plantation, and it's they cut this is a pasture for the cows, but on the other side, it's the whole mountainside is covered in coffee. But these children on this very steep sort of hill were playing football, and they actually had made a ball out of old rags. They got these rags and they tied it into a ball. So the fellow who I was with from Labatsa, his name was Mary Saruti, he actually bought these young boys a soccer ball. I promise you I didn't ask this woman to pose, but this was her. You know, I was walking down the street of this village, and I saw this woman in the kind of the doorway, kind of relaxing, kind of, you know, thinking. And I was with sort of a translator, and I asked the translator, I said, you know, ask her if I can take her picture. because, you know, the posters, I thought this was an incredible scene. So she actually was very willing to be photographed. And so I went in and took 5 or 10 pictures. She sat there, posing. Very, they have a great dignity, these people. And if you approach them in, you know, in a friendly, respectful way, they're just so hospitable and open up to you and very wonderful. Oh, this little girl, I completely fell in love with this little girl. Her father was had a coffee, garden, coffee field. And he was extremely helpful. We used his land while we were photographing for the 2015 Lavazza calendar, and he was, really helpful, and despite all the rain and mud and everything. But this is his family, and he invited us to his home. So we went in there and we spent the afternoon. You have to see this exhibition inside because you can get really close to the pictures and you can see all the detail. There's a lot of wonderful things happening in this picture, but if you're really right there, just next to the picture, you can see everything. So now we've sort of moved over to India, which is a country I've kind of very dear to my heart, a country I've been to maybe I've been there more than 80 times. I've been going there for, 35 years. And every year I go several times. But I photographed, about 15 years, no, actually more, it's almost 20 years ago, I photographed some Tibetan refugees growing coffee in South India. And I didn't really think so much about it, but when I started working on the della project, and I really started to research coffee. India is a huge sort of crop and a major, kind of a cottage industry. So anyway, this is a woman who's actually drying coffee in the front yard of their home, and you see the same scene in Brazil, and Honduras, and Vietnam, all over the world. It's the same sort of process. This is inside the coffee plantation. One of the things about in India, which we were there at it was kind of a rainy season. They had leeches, and as you walk through the plantation, these little bugs, these little worms would catch onto your leg, and then they kind of would suck your blood. It was really disgusting. But they're not dangerous. They just make you bleed a lot. Inside a warehouse coffee production plant. This was this village was really interesting. This woman, her family and the community were all involved in coffee. Coffee was just outside the village. And I saw how colorful her house was, and I thought this is going to make a really wonderful picture. The kind of the blue and the yellow, and how they kind of played together. This was another coffee worker who I was really struck by. She really caught my eye. First of all, she's very pretty, very beautiful, but you know, she came to work. She's like a day laborer, and she gets there, she drinks coffee all day, and goes home. But the thing which was so interesting to me was she had, you know, this necklace and the kind of beautiful earrings, and she had a nice kind of shirt. And even though she was just working in this very kind of, you know, in the field, and this, you know, she came to work very well presented, a lot of sort of style. And she didn't, you know, I thought that was really inspirational to me. Another worker in India, very pretty girl. This is a child in one of the homes. And I love the hair. It was just really very handsome little boy. So I wanted to sort of transition to, let's see here. I wanted to show some of my other pictures of India, which are not really related to coffee, but it's the same sort of region, it's the same country, and this was a little boy in Bombay. Most of the coffee in India is grown in the south. They also grow tea in the south, and in the north in Darjeeling, they grow a lot of tea as well. But coffee is mainly in like Kerala and Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. That's really the coffee area. But I was this is back in 1996. There was a little boy at a festival in India in Bombay, and he was they were playing and they were throwing color, and he just sort of asked me if I could take this picture, and just looked into my lens. It was so India. One of the great things about India as a photographer is the color and the festivals, and the festival is so rich with color. In fact, Hinduism is very rich in color, as is Tibetan Buddhism. A lot of Buddhists in India, and the monasteries and the temples are very colorful, very interesting. So you really can't tell the story of, I think, Hinduism or Buddhism without showing the color. This is the same festival as the last one, except that this is everybody gets involved in this festival. It's called Holi, and they throw color, they get drunk, they dance, they get stoned, and everybody just goes wild. I did a story 30 years ago on a train journey from almost Afghanistan through Pakistan, India, and into Bangladesh. And the one place that when I got the assignment, I thought to myself, I wonder if the train goes anywhere near the Taj Mahal, because the Taj Mahal, of course, is like one of the most famous buildings in the world. And when I got there, I saw that the train went, they're just maybe I don't know, 700 meters from the Taj. So I think I was the first photographer to actually juxtapose to photograph the Taj and these old steam locomotives in the same frame. So I did this journey for National Geographic, and then I did a book with a travel writer friend of mine, Paul Theroux, and it was an incredible journey. It's sort of like everybody in India then travel by train. And so it was really a way to get to know some people and to see. The trains were always very crowded, and sometimes you couldn't find a place to sit. I always loved this guy. He just didn't give a shit. He just took his clothes off and just had a bath right there in the middle of the afternoon, right on the train station. Really funny guy. And I always love kind of human and animal behavior. And I thought it was very interesting, this man at the train station kind of laid down and took a nap, had some sleep. And this dog, I don't know if it was his dog, the dog went to the same place and kind of laid down in the same kind of position. And the relationship between man and animals, man and dog, it's a really interesting to observe. These are some passengers on the way. In Rajasthan, in this one area of India, they had this ritual. When people get together and celebrate or have some important event, the men get together and they have an opium ceremony. So they get opium and then they mix it with water and they pass this around, and the custom is to drink the opium out of the man who's has paid for the celebration, to drink the opium out of his hand. So you see this man going around with his hand, and everybody's kind of drinking out of this guy's hand. But it's kind of a weak, you couldn't really get high from the opium because it's very kind of watered down. But some people did, I guess. I always love this picture with these three, this is also in Rajasthan, these three men with these red turbans kind of in this really wonderful kind of design. I did a project, I photographed with Kodachrome film, which was probably the best film ever made, called Kodachrome. And I used Kodachrome for like 25 years. And then they stopped making Kodachrome, and I asked Kodak if I could have the very, very last roll that they made. And I wanted to do a kind of a project, I wanted to do an homage to Kodachrome. So I got the role and I traveled around the world. Went to India, and this was one of the subjects I photographed for this last roll of Kodachrome. This man's a magician. He's a nomad. He lives in this very small, and his hair is completely white, but he colors it with henna and makes it into this kind of very bizarre kind of orange hair. But he has this real kind of dignity and a very proud presence. And he had made his life as a magician, playing tricks and performing for people for like 60 years. There's a group of snake handlers in India, and this boy was part of that community, and they do performances and they do all sorts of stuff with snakes. So there's just wonderful faces in India. This is another kind of look. This is up in the mountains near Darjeeling. This man's has just gotten some grass for his animals. This is the holy city of Benares, Varanasi. And they have these people who wash clothes up and down the Ganges. I always love photographing people sleeping. In fact, a colleague of mine in Magnum named Bernardo Shiana did a whole book on people reading, and I'm sort of working on my own book. Maybe I'll publish something on people sleeping around the world. It's always fun to play with light and shadow early in the morning and late in the afternoon, and to see how that, you know. I saw this school in a village that really reminded me of Mahatma Gandhi, because Gandhi was believed that everybody should know how to weave and to make cloth. And, 60 years after Gandhi was killed, they were still making their own cloth and weaving in this school. I don't know if you can see this, but it's this is the largest festival in the world, maybe the largest festival in the history of the planet. And it took place in 2000, I think it was 2000. And it takes place in the banks of the Ganges in a place called Allahabad. And there were about 30 million people that attended this festival. 30 million people. And it lasted for, 45 days. So I was in Kashmir, and it was getting dark, and we were driving down the road, and I saw this man sitting inside of a tree, and he was about to make himself a cup of tea in his tree. So I thought that was a really amazing thing. I've never seen that before, so I stopped and got my tripod out and took some pictures. There's something about this which seems, I don't know, there's some story in this picture, this guy walking in a circle, endlessly, kind of, but he's actually, it's a yoga exercise for the